FBI and CISA publish a guide to living off the land techniques. We're going to go over this in just a second. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. FBI and CISA publish a guide to living off the land techniques, but this isn't what you think it is. In fact, it's actually worse in a lot of ways, because we have talked about the subject of our grid going down, us getting hacked, us having some sort of major event that essentially resets everything, and they are talking about this in a very weird sense. It's odd they call it this, but I'll have Dex, who understands the tech a lot better than I do. Dex, my co-host/internet brother. Dex James, what is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So as our tech expert, what do they mean by living off the land?
So, yeah, this caught a lot of people off guard when they heard the headline. Like, the FBI is telling us how to live off the land, which we don't need them to tell us how to do that. Lots of us know how to do that, and there's plenty of books written about it. And they've even told us, the government have told us that we need to prepare and be able to support ourselves, especially DHS and others. But nonetheless, what they're really talking about is something that's an acronym called LOTL, which is living off the land. And it's a covert cyber attack technique in which criminals carry out malicious activities using legitimate IT administration tools. So if you remember when Adam talked about his friend in the banking business that is pretty high up now in the banking business, talking about their investment in hiring all these people to look and find in the hardware, so to speak, or in the network where the problems may lie. That's exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about these malicious activities that are lying dormant or being used. If they're not lying dormant, then they're just backdoors that are being used in the hardware or in the software portions of the hardware that are part of these tools that they use, whether it be software, whether it be hardware. Another example was they had removed malware from hundreds of routers across the US because it was believed it was used in an attack. If you remember the water treatment facilities that were hit by Iran attackers, they were using a default password on a piece of hardware that was in the system that they were able to get access to. And nobody had bothered to change the default password on all these pieces of hardware that were out there that had access to and critical water for infrastructure. So that's when they talk about living on the land. They're saying that these hackers are like living on the land. They're hanging out in your network, and they're using the things that are hanging out in your network and hanging out even in your IT toolkit. And I know you guys aren't all a bunch of IT guys, so you don't understand all of that. And I don't even understand all of it, because I'm nowhere near as geeky as some of those guys are. But that's what they're talking about. But they did put this out, and it is very important to understand. They're putting out this guideline. The FBI, the CISA, actually a handful of other agencies in conjunction with them were putting this out because of the massive amount of cyber attacks and cyber threats that are happening right now to our critical infrastructure, to our corporations, to our government, and all of the access that they have and everything that's online. So it's, a very critical moment, and I think we need to pay attention to what's going on here.
They're going to be putting out information about how much we have been infiltrated. And this is kind of a make it or break it point. A place like China, if they are truly as infiltrated as they say, and as the white papers from the Pentagon say, then an opportune time to strike would be sooner than later, because the more that they go through our systems, comb through and find everything, the more that they can correct and fix the problem. Now, if you are China, which is butting up against the U.S. as, trying to vie for number one, again, this is something that they now have, we now have knowledge that they're in all of these systems. So when does this happen? In 5 years from now or sooner than later, because they know that we're going to be cleaning out systems and trying to correct the issue. Dex, go ahead.
And let's not forget what else the FBI was involved in. We just reported, and if you didn't see it, you need to go over to Marfoogle News and watch the video about Sheriff Richard K. Jones from Butler County, Ohio. He went to a meeting with the head of the FBI and all the other sheriffs, and they talked specifically about all of these threats that they were worried about. And he got on the air and sort of did a whole PR about it. So go check it out. It's on our other channel. You need to watch that and share it out. It's really important to share that out. While one of the things he talked about, aside from all the things that we think about from prep and worrying about potential bad people coming across the border, bringing drones, doing all these other bad things, he was talking about hacking. And he was specifically talking about the event that's coming up in November. And he was specifically drilled over and over again, because he mentioned it over again from that meeting, that event was going to be hacked. And that's why, again, we have the FBI coming out talking about these hacking capabilities and talking about protecting these things. If you don't believe that it's organic and they're just trying to protect us, then they're definitely putting the message out there to prepare us to understand that when, November rolls around and we're all told, oh, the whole systems are hacked left and right, don't believe what you're seeing, or whatever they may tell us. Even at the local level, Sheriff Richard K. Jones said, the FBI told him they're coming after the local level in November, not just the federal level. So pay attention, folks. It's very, very important. And go watch that video if you haven't seen it.
Not to mention, they're talking about the folks that have come over. Sheriff Rick Jones talked about the folks coming over from the southern border. It's some crazy number. They say by the end of this term that it's going to be like 15 million people or something. But over just the last couple of years, it was up to upwards of 6.3 million people. Now, some of these are folks just trying to get a better life, but a percentage of these folks are from adversarial countries that are sent here directly on a mission. Now, as far as the threats, everybody can take threats the way that they want to take them. As far as there are people out there that doesn't matter how many postings, how many DHS warnings, how many FBI warnings, they don't trust any of those guys, so they're not going to listen to any of it. Preppers, a lot of the ones I know, they go, well, it is in the back of my head if it's going to be, if it's said, if there's a chance of this happening. We also know that we prepare for it, but also we also know that a lot of the times they will put things out like this before a real event happens. We see real events and then they go, oh, back in February, they knew about this. Back in November, they knew about this. And what they knew about is usually they'll put out articles, they'll put out news beforehand. This guy, he was caught on video at the border saying, you'll remember me. That's the kind of thing that after a real big event happens, they go, they knew about it back in November. ABC News covered this guy, blah, blah, blah. We've seen this so many times, time and time again. And it's like at one point, people are going to have to wake up to the fact that even if we are being lied to, understand we are also being shaped as far as our view on real events. They're shaping the narrative events. They're not just creating events. They could be guiding on how you're going to perceive future events that they know are going to happen. Whether they are organic or orchestrated, you have to understand, do they care about us? If any of us, the regular people, are affected? No, they do not. And by they, I mean the people at the very top. They live in their gated communities. They live in their gated mansions. They live with their security teams, their armed security teams. They live in the areas that won't be affected by these things. They don't shop for themselves. They don't go out. They have somebody to do that for them. Those people do not care what happens to the general public that are working 9 to 5, traveling all around the city, going about their day, trying to do their things. They do not care about us. In fact, they have a feeling towards us, but it's not a positive one. It's more like there are too many of these people on Earth. I cannot tell you, just at the regular level of like wealthy, I've heard people talk like that. You know, wealthy people compared to us, you know, millionaires that are like, you know, talking like this. We're talking about the billionaires, the ultra rich, the people that have yachts with their spare change. That's the kind of people we're talking about. And those are the kind of people that are running the show. They do not care about us. I cannot reiterate that enough. So as far as this goes, the framework has been set up for 5 years, not just a couple months. People are going, oh, they're just scaring us over the last couple months. This has been framework we've seen built over 5 years, and I guarantee it was longer than that, but we have kept track of it. We've archived all of the articles. We've seen that this is building and building and building towards a point which we have not seen yet. We have not seen the big event. We've not seen the big, halftime show. Okay, this isn't it yet. When we see it, we will know it. And that's what preppers look at, and they say, either way, we're going to try to get prepared the best we can. And I know a lot of you will be, because not only you watch the show, but you talk to your other community members. We have people in all parts of the states and all parts of the world watching and chatting. 2,000 people may be in a chat on a good day or more, and they're all talking to each other about what they are seeing and what they see, the videos they're catching, the tanks that they see moving, the deployments they are experiencing. All of this is happening right now, and it is no better time to start slow. Like, just get yourself a basic level of prepared, and you will be 100% better off than the majority of people. So just cannot stress it enough. Like, they are telling us what they're, what's happening right now. And because the distrust for legacy media, for agencies, for all of this, they're going to be able to say, oh, well, we told them, we can't be blamed. We told you guys this was going to happen. And people won't believe it because they don't believe anything coming out of their mouths. So it's kind of this, it's kind of 4D chess. They know that people aren't going to believe, so they can out in the open tell us something is going to happen, and many people are going to ignore it, especially if they attach any amount of years or this. They're not even attaching that here. They're telling us by November, all of this is going down. The bank industries were told by March and April. So the bank industry says before March and before April, there's some sort of, deadline that they are worried about, that they need to have and hire all sorts of thousands of security cyber experts to go and comb through their whole systems because they think that they are affected. Whether that is true or not, again, I guess we'll see, right? If they're just doing that, they're just having them pay millions and millions of dollars in labor costs for nothing. Maybe they are. Maybe they're just trying to scare them. But I guess we will all see very soon. All right, and then let's see. From D.C., we're going to be heading over to North Korea. They just tested a new guided rocket launcher system in the latest threat to Seoul. North Korea tests a new guided system that they say is much, much worse than the last that they did. North Korea tested a new controllable shell and ballistic control system for multiple rocket launchers. State media reported Monday as the isolated state keeps up a flurry of weapons launches on a tense Korean peninsula. The North Academy of Defense Science conducted a test firing of a 240 millimeter caliber rocket shell using the new system on Sunday. The development of a 240 millimeter caliber controllable multiple rocket launcher shell and its ballistic control system will make a qualitative change to our Army's multiple rocket launcher force. Now, I was trying to find an exact kind of representation of what this looks like, but essentially it is exactly what it sounds like. Multiple rockets all firing at once, tube type launcher, right? South Korean military detected the launches from the west coast towards the Yellow Sea on Sunday, and it says that the test was the latest in a series of provocations by North Korea, which has raised inter-Korean tensions to their highest in years. Not to mention the symbolism of tearing down monuments dedicated to the eventual reunification of the North and the South Koreas. They have torn all of their not only one of their largest, but all of their huge statues, all of their monuments, huge archways. They've basically tore them all down in a message to North Korea or South Korea saying, we're done. This is it. Are they doing it all as propaganda? Well, there is, all we're experiencing is propaganda now. So we just got to kind of go with our intuition. What do we think is really going to happen? Or what is the real agenda behind what's going to happen? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. By the way, lots of great people in the chat right now. Thank you so much for everybody that made it. JT, Mork, Mindy, thank you. Carol, I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Old Combat Vet, thank you for the super yesterday. Let's see here. And then Genius by Birth, it's me. Nickel Wise, Craig Alicious, and Chanel Beveliqua. Nice to see you this week. And then, of course, Mimi Carstel, Adrian Maldonado, Craig Alicious, Jerry Schertz, Julie Pilkerton, Zen1 AZ, and Neil Nelson. Thank you guys. Thank you for making it today. And let's do a quick roll call. We've got See Here Think, Tina Jarvis, Piper Lynn from Las Vegas. Hey, Piper Lynn. Nice to see you. We've got Briar Patch, Melanated, South California, SoCal in the house. Hey, Melanated, Melanated one. Our guy, what's going on? Says hi, chat. Ohio in the house. We've got Ohio, Comet Moon, Bunny Ha, San Diego, Central New Mexico, Ghostly FPV. Nice to see you. Wyoming in the house. Mary Miles, Nerd Bucket from Jefferson, Georgia. Nice to see you. Tina Jarvis. We've got Kentucky in the house. Laura Griffith. We've got Smoke and Swamp Outdoors from Denellen, Florida. Daniel Sen. Let's see here. CC03. The Major in the house. We've got from London, England. We've got Woodinville, Washington. Nice to see local Washingtonian here. Big Bugs, San Francisco Bay Area. Army Hill, Michigan Made. Self-titled there, Michigan Made. Nice from Michigan. James Damron, nice to see you. Hey, man, nice to see you in chat over on Twitter. James is, of course, active over there on Twitter. Thank you for responding to a lot of my tweets. Trusted Source, Aiken Floyd, and thank you for the DMs. Nana of 7, nice to see you from Virginia. We've got Anna in the Independent Constitutional Republic of Texas. Nice to see you. Derek, Ohio, thank you. David Reed, millions and millions of people. I didn't get to see the rest. Sorry about that. I'll go back to it, David. By the way, I hope you and Laura are okay. I hope Laura's here too. Beans and Frank, Poco Loco, and Sherilyn, Rick White, and everyone else. Newport, Washington. Isn't that that's like by Bellevue, I think. Nice to see you guys. I had a friend that went to Newport High. Probably, if you've been there for a long time, it's probably where you went. James Damron says, no problem. Hey, thank you. And then everyone else, I appreciate you. We'll shout you out a little bit later. And let's go back to the news. We have, of course, Danish leaders launch construction of new ammunition plant as Europe ramps up production. Dex, do you want to go over this?
Certainly. The leaders of Germany and Denmark, they've joined forces. They announced this actually last year, I believe, in December, that they were building this new ammunition factory. And now they've met up in person and kicking off the joint, groundbreaking ceremony, if you want to call it that, for the factory. Now, here's what's important to understand. The plant that's being built by the defense company Rheinmetall, I'm sure I'm butchering that name in German. It's at an existing site where they already have a huge manufacturing location. You actually see it there on the screen. Those are multiple buildings there, and I think there's even some more over to the left that they have where they build their big military or defense contractor there in Germany. So they're adding to it, but here's what's important. They are going to be producing 200,000 artillery shells a year, along with other explosives and other compounds, including warheads. That's a significant investment. That's a significant output. And of course, they're shouldering the cost of 300 million euros. The company is, but of course they don't care because they're going to be selling these, and they understand the reason why. Now, they're going to tell us, and they do tell us, that this is all part of an important for the ammunition needs of UKR. But we know that they're really laying the groundwork for the coming conflict between NATO and Russia, because they keep programming that to us. They keep telling us it's coming. Every country, from Germany to Denmark to Finland to Sweden, all of them have been talking about this. All of them. I don't know. I'm losing count of how many countries have said that there's this conflict coming. Of course, Putin, on the other hand, hadn't said that. He only said, if I'm attacked, will I go any further? But who knows if we should trust what he says? Nonetheless, trust what they're doing. They're putting in this company, not putting in this company. They're expanding this company on a major contract to pump out 200,000 artillery shells a year, as well as warheads, as well as additional explosive components. So that's a big deal. We need to pay attention.
It's almost like
we try to catch these when we see them.
It's almost like in. We'll ask the chat here. Do you think? We do compilations of. It's sort of all. We kind of put together all of the previous stories that are related. Do you think we should do our research and try to find all of the ramp ups like this and put it all together in a video? Would you guys like to see that? We always put an extreme amount of research into that, and research for us isn't. I watched. I did my research as I watched someone else's video. We go deep into research on those. So if you would like to see that, let us know. If it's not something you'd be interested in, again, we'd love to make use of our time as efficiently as possible. But we've seen so many that it's easily, when we saw this today, it's like, this is now a huge list, and it's only growing by the day. So when you see this, it's a pretty clear picture. They're ramping up production of everything. I've already been telling you for 5 years, they've moved deadlines from 2032, 2030, 2029 to 2023. And we're seeing a lot of the 2024. A lot of these deadlines were originally set in the 30s. Okay, not 1930s, 2030s. By the way, it's weird. I just saw an article talking about the late 2010s, and it's just so weird to think of it that way. And they were talking about like CeeLo and his going to jail, and were getting accused of stuff. And I was like, the late 2010s, because I was like, this wasn't that long ago. They're already talking about, 2019 as the late 2010s. Is that just weird? Is that weird to anybody else? I get the 2000s, the 2010s. That's so crazy. In 100 years, we're going to be like the 1920s, like, oh my gosh, they only had cell phones back then. They didn't have brain implants. Anyways. Their Super Bowls were in person. Wow, weird. They didn't have virtual bowls. Anyways, moving on. Before we move on, I just want to make sure you guys remember, go over and check out Inergy, especially right now. There's all sorts of great stuff that is ramping up over at Inergy, especially now it is February. So a lot of stuff is coming in. Everyone that has waited for Inergy, of course, knows all of the Inergy products right now are in super high demand. They have also just been contracted to make the Inergy Flex Tactical solar generator for the Army. So that one was actually designed with the Air Force Research Laboratory. So you know that it was actually not only built by Inergy, but by the Air Force Research Lab. This is the one I now recommend because they're moving forward. They're going to have a lot of the features, and they're going to actually move forward with that kind of being more of the standard. The 1,500-pound latch system alone makes it a really huge thing as far as ease of use and being able to expand it. You can expand it up to 96 batteries. It is not only water and dust resistant, it has a steel frame. This thing is tough as nails. It's built like a tank. And of course, it can create power from the sun. You team this up with folding panels. You've got yourself a portable system / a system that you can make as big as you want. And it's absolutely silent. You do not need gas for, as Sheriff Rick Jones in that briefing that just happened a week ago said, he is not even suggesting gas-powered generators. He's suggesting solar because of the fact that if the power goes out, so will the gas stations. It will be very, very, very difficult to attain gas. We've seen in when the pipeline went down, it was hell enough for the folks on the East Coast just for a few hours. Imagine if it goes down permanently. Do you have space for barrels of flammable gas? Probably not. If you do, again, do you have the money to buy hundreds of gallons of gas to last you for a year? Probably not. In this case, you hook up some solar panels, you've got power, you can store it for when you need, or you can charge it from your wall if you do have power. Then when your power does go out, you'll have power right there at your fingertips. Go to marfuglenews.com/Inergy, Inergy. It's a great system. It's modular. You can add features to it. You can subtract features, make it super portable. It's as easy as Lego. It's a very, very simple system. Just the bricks stack and boom, you're good. marfuglenews.com/Inergy, Inergy. and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Not only does it help us get some credit, it also helps you save money. Thank you guys for doing so. And again, there is a weight, so make sure to understand that. You'll have to check on what the current weight is as of watching this. It's definitely worth it. I would say if you can't wait the time allotted, then I would probably get yourself a gas power generator. Most of their competitors are represented by companies tied directly back to, well, frankly, adversaries. So at least the ones that do comparative things to this. And then let's move on to Penn State. The U.S. Navy is working on a radical new submarine that will slice through the ocean so fast that before you are halfway through watching Oppenheimer, it will have zipped underwater from New York to London. Now, this is done opening up an air bubble. It's actually really fascinating. Apparently, Russia has already designed a torpedo that can go like 280 miles an hour underwater. Now, water is normally extremely slow, at least comparatively to the air. But if they do this, Dex, how would they create a bubble at the front? They kind of explain it, but this is pretty insane to think about, opening a constant bubble underwater.
Yeah, it's called supercavitation. And cavitation is that the notion of creating an air pocket or an air bubble in this case. I don't know the technicalities of how they would create the bubble, but it's been done before. It's been done before in the sense that as you said, the Cold War era torpedo, I think it's called the Shakoval. It was a Soviet torpedo. It was able to reach a speed of 370 kilometers, which is around 330 miles per hour, making it a lot faster than other conventional torpedoes. Now, there's this research that's been underway, and there's a picture if you want to, it's like a fake picture, but it's in a screener if you want to grab it, Adam. It kind of gives you a visual representation of what they're designing. So if you just understand, and I know anybody that's ever been in the water themselves knows that when you're swimming in the water, that's the surface. It's the friction of the water that's holding you back as you're trying to move through it. Obviously, a slick boat that's got a nice point to it can move a little easier than, say, something that's got a lot of friction to it, or a big flat piece of, material that's trying to go against the water. The whole point here is if you can eliminate the water while you're underwater, then you're moving through air, and moving through air is faster than moving through water. So the idea here is they're trying to develop this bubble around a submersible that will allow it to glide through the bubble, and the bubble is not moving through the water, but is being created in front and collapsing in the back. So therefore, you're making a bubble as fast as you're moving, and it's like one long continuous bubble.
Couldn't this change?
If that makes any sense.
Couldn't this change travel forever if they created something that people could ride in?
It certainly could. Now, the couple of things they're having to figure out that aren't real easy is propulsion. Obviously, if you're traveling through air in a bubble underwater, you can't just use a propeller, because the propeller is there to use the friction of the water. So you actually have to use rocket power. And as they depict here in the picture, they're going to be using a rocket engine underwater to propel. And then the other thing they have to figure out is how to deal with navigation, because you can't use a rudder to steer because you're inside this bubble. You actually have to make the bubble sort of steer, as well as have propulsion that matches the steering, which I would assume would be some sort of jet propulsion to force the movement or the angle, or you eliminate it and just say, I can only move in straight directions at high speed.
Or you slow down this. If you turn, you go to a snail's pace and then go straight
make a
again.
turn and then shoot straight again. Yeah. Think of it like hyper warp in, Star Trek or whatever. You go in a straight direction. So fascinating stuff. But the fact that this isn't new. It's actually old tech. And that's the part that's kind of scary about it. You got to think about, what are we going to do aside, sure, human travel would be very interesting, going from New York to London in, an hour and a half or whatever it is underwater. But just think about as we saw the Soviets create a torpedo that could go that fast. Think about what's going to happen when this technology gets revealed. I'm sure they already have it with newer technology torpedoes and other types of even water to air vehicles that we have seen, where they can take a drone that can go underwater and also come back out of the water and fly through the sky, or the reverse, fly through the sky, go underwater and traverse. So there's some sneak attacks that can easily happen, because you won't be able to detect as easily, let's say, a warhead moving from Russia under the water through the Arctic over to the side to the east coast of America at subsonic speeds or supersonic speeds underwater, and then popping into the air all of a sudden out of nowhere. That would be a crazy event.
Yeah, as far as, if they made a commercial version and were able to have people travel like that, that would be insane. 1.4 times the speed of sound, so 925 miles per hour, something like that. And then with art, it also makes you think, like, are they doing more research on things that are going to be underwater? Like, and another thing, would you completely get past bad weather and bad oceans? So if there's rough oceans, if you go underneath somewhat to like where planes go above the storm, can you go underneath the storm? You know what I mean, Dex?
Well, yeah, could you go under it? But the thing that bothers me is like, how do you navigate, hundreds and hundreds of miles per hour underwater when it's full of like, fish and I'm not worried about little fish, but like, you go flying down then you just nail a whale. I mean, what happens? Like, that's a major collision. How do you detect it and maneuver or prevent, collisions like that? Would be something else they'd probably have to think of. But hey, there's one other thing that was in this article that I just thought was interesting because they were talking about high-speed travel. They said that last month, Lockheed and NASA had jointly revealed the X-59 experimental aircraft, which is expected to fly at 1.4 times the speed of sound, which is 925 miles per hour. And it's doing it without generating an explosive sonic boom. So they expect that jet to play an instrumental role in bringing back supersonic commercial air travel. But I thought it was fascinating that they've not only developed one that can go that fast, but they've developed it to not create a sonic boom. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's something about its aerodynamics.
A couple of weeks ago, we covered the mention of that, how it wouldn't make a sonic boom, and nobody really understands how. So what did the whale say to the supersonic submarine?
I don't know. What did it say?
Sorry to burst your bubble.
Wah, wah, wah.
All right, I'm done. My dad joke for the day is done. And with Argentina's help, U.S. Oh, that's so not good. The Justice Department said on Monday it has taken custody of Boeing's 747 cargo plane used by Mahan Air to transport supplies and fighters for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force. The department said Argentina transferred the plane to the United States on Sunday, completing forfeiture actions. Mahan Air is sanctioned by the Treasury Department, while the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds, is listed as a terrorist organization. The seized American-built aircraft was transferred by a sanctioned Iranian airline in a transaction that violated U.S. export control laws and directly benefited the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is a designated T organization. Assistant Attorney General Matthew Olson for the Justice Department, National Security Division, said in a statement. So again, this is really odd. They're essentially saying that, you had multiple parties in part with this. I guess, Dex, why are we seeing, deals like this and things going down like this?
Well, it seems like now we're at least putting out the presentation as if we are doing something to deal with the sanctions that are supposed to be out there. If it's interesting because you could rewind to a previous administration, and we're not trying to pick on the political aspects of one administration over the other, but if you rewound to a previous administration, Iran wasn't making a lot of money. It didn't have tons of money. It wasn't flush with cash. It didn't have billions and billions and billions of extra dollars, or at least in comparison to what it does now. And back then, the claim was a lot of the sanctions were enforced. As we've moved forward and through the years, whether you call that an administration change or a policy change or just enforcement of sanctions, we haven't, in the sense that they have been building up their coffers, so to speak, and making tons and tons of money off of selling oil, doing other things that typically would have been sanctioned and at least held them back. Now, all of a sudden, and it's probably going back to the whole political aspect of it, now all of a sudden, we're hearing about these sanctions. Oh, we've sanctioned that oil tanker. Oh, we've sanctioned this airplane. And we're starting to grab these things and make sure that the headlines are out there so that everybody knows about it.
It's like a flip flop. It's like the border thing. Now it's T-Man's fault that the all these people came through. It's now the last president's fault that millions of people came over, and this administration wants to close it down. Even though it's not like people don't remember a few years ago saying, "Come on down, come on over. We welcome all." It's just insane. And then Iran, Rafah offensive will have severe consequences, Iran warns after deadly strikes. If you, of course, missed this, it says Iran has warned of serious consequences after Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to take further action in Rafah, and I hope I'm saying that right, Rafah, in the south of the Strip. The city was hit by airstrikes overnight, the Israel signaling its intention to carry out a full ground offensive into the area. We, of course, talked about this ground offensive in the future, this event, because Egypt, the other day when Joe confused Egypt with Mexico, that he convinced Mexico to open up its gates, he was talking about Egypt opening up their gates because of this offensive, saying, hey, we need to let them out, and that's why Egypt is getting prepared, putting tanks at their border. They're essentially lining up. They're getting ready for this big event. Now they say that overnight there was airstrikes, and they're doing that to clear it out so they can go in by foot, extending the scope of war crimes of the occupying regime to the Palestinian refugees in Rafah will have severe consequences for Tel Aviv. That is according to the Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdialian. I'm sure I'm butchering that as well. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia called for the immediate ceasefire and also warned Israel would face serious repercussions for storming and targeting of the city. Remember, Saudi Arabia and the U.S. were super close. Saudi Arabia would roll out the red carpet for the U.S. Now they are condemning us. They don't answer our president's calls. They're doing giant deals with China and literally rolling out a red carpet for Xi when he comes and visits. So everything is topsy-turvy right now. Everything has been flipped on its head. All of the powers that be have essentially been rotated for some sort of cause that it seems like is run by a completely different power. It seems like there's at least two massive, really evil powers at play here. There isn't a good side, I don't think. I think even the good side is the lesser of two evils, and we're like happy because it affects us less, and there's less, fiddling with what we are currently used to. But what we're currently used to is huge corruption and, horrible events happening all the time that we have no idea are actually orchestrated and horrible in itself. But what the change will be is that all of us are going to be affected by these future changes. Now, this conflict that's going on, it is now global as far as the repercussions that could happen. And now Saudi Arabia is even condemning, all of this as well. You've got all of these countries taking a side. And again, the U.S. is supporting the side which globally a lot of folks are against. We're in an upside down world right now. It is really, really, really getting crazy. Dex, is there anything else you wanted to point out from this?
Well, there's one side of this that some people question, and that is, with the whole tunnel structure and how people are getting in and out of the Strip, especially before the event, because they literally were trucking underground. They would always, say that it was coming in from Egypt's side. Now, Egypt has said there is nothing there, and they said that in addition to putting their tanks along the walls, they have fortified their walls with concrete both above and below the ground. I just wonder if, when they do storm Rafah, if it's going to be discovered that there's something going on that Egypt doesn't want everybody to know. And because maybe they're playing both sides. And I'm not saying they are, but we'll see. And maybe that's the big reason why everybody's sort of saying, back off, don't do this. Now, the flip side is don't kid yourself. Rafah, it isn't just a city on the edge of the border. It's actually a town split with that border. There's Rafah in Egypt and there's Rafah in the Strip. And there's a line and a wall right in between it. And so if they go in and that's how close it is. In other words, the people live right up against that wall. That city is right up against that wall. And so if they go in and storm it, there is a huge chance that people are going to want to flee and get away from what they would consider the bad guy, and the way they would head is into Egypt. Egypt doesn't want that to happen. And we'll talk in just a moment about what they're wanting, what they have been saying, and then maybe even backpedaling on.
And going back deeper into Egypt, Egypt threatens to suspend key peace treaty if Israel pushes into Rafah. Egypt is actually threatening to suspend its peace treaty with Israel if Israeli troops are sent into the densely populated southern strip of Rafah, and says that fighting there could force a closure of the territory's main aid supply route, to Egyptian officials said. Now, that supply route, the one that Joe talked about, he convinced the president of Egypt / Mexico to open. They're saying that this would close that up. That, hey, if you go in there, you're closing it down. If you look at Israel Times and a lot of the media coming out of there, it's like there's no question that they're going to do this. This is happening. So is Egypt going to do what they say here, and they're going to close that route? That is, if that happens, that's going to cause even more turmoil, especially with the folks that are against everything that's going on. It's going to cause other problems. This is it's a huge cycle. It's just going to continue getting worse and worse. It's a roller coaster, and it's people are trying to get off right now. The threat to suspend the Camp David Accords, which again, from Camp David, cornerstone of regional stability for nearly half a century, came after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said sending troops into Rafah was necessary to win the conflict against Hamas. Over half of the Strip's population of 2.3 million have fled to Rafah, usually home to about 300,000 people, and are packed into sprawling tent camps and UN-run shelters near the border. Egypt fears a mass influx of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees who may never be allowed to return. People walk along a crowded main street, blah, blah, blah. It says the standoff between Israel and Egypt, two close U.S. allies, comes as aid groups warn that an offensive in Rafah would worsen the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Strip, where around 80% of residents have fled their homes and where the UN says a quarter of the population faces starvation. Remember that everything coming out, it doesn't matter what part of the world, there's propaganda mixed in, or there's a spin, or there's a narrative turn or twist. But as far as this goes, it's pretty cut and dry. There's 2.3 million people in an area that was already packed with 300,000. The whole strip is 25 miles long. The whole strip is 25 miles. They said, hey, this half of 1 point whatever million needs to go down to this chunk. Now it's even pushed farther right up against Egypt. So this is like a powder keg. You can imagine 2.3 million people getting packed down to the very last portion, and then them, going after that. It's a big deal. And yeah, I guess we'll see how they play this and how this all goes through. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and let's pay attention, because we got to go to the next article here, but let's pay attention, folks, to who the sources are on this one. So the sources are as far as the threat to the peace deal. Okay. The sources are not named. They're anonymous because they don't feel like they can say their information publicly, but two of them are being talked about as being government officials with Egypt, and then one being I can't remember the term they used, but a person who works with those, like a diplomat, that's not necessarily a government official, but a diplomatic position. So two government officials, a diplomat, and are the ones threatening this. Now, the part that this is why it gets a little interesting, because we don't know what's really happening here. Now we have a different government official coming out saying, no, it's okay. That peace treaty that we have is safe, even over this, the offensive. Now, we don't know. We don't know which side this is coming from. We don't even know how much unity the Egyptian government has around this, if they're getting two different mouthpieces speaking from their own government talking about this. And it could just be a negotiation tactic that they used on Sunday to put pressure on, and then by Monday they sort of backed it off by having the foreign minister come out and say, no, we're committed to upholding the peace treaty. Now, he may just be doing that because it's really his job as the foreign minister. His job is to maintain peace with anybody at a foreign level. And this, by the way, this Camp David Accord is like almost 50 years old. 40 years ago, they have been in a agreement with Israel. Egypt has, to have this level of peace where they maintain this border. They work together, and they're not in conflict at all over it, or they're not supposed to be. That's what this accord's about. So having this fall apart would be a huge deal. And I guess that's what everybody's worried about, is what's the truth here?
I get a lot of people are bored by a lot of this, and this is going to end up turning into a powder keg, and we'll probably be covering the repercussions of all of this here in a second. And then Israel, a UN agency, said that it had no idea a Hamas nerve center was directly below its Strip HQ. So under Gaza, a UN agency, again, the same UN agency that's now running tent cities, underneath had the nerve center for the bad guys underneath. This was basically a tech center of all of their operations, servers, all the computer components of their operation was directly under the UN. Talk about raising an eyebrow here. This is really crazy. Real quick, though, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield. If you haven't already, you can get protected. You can get your cars, trucks, and motorcycles protected against an EMP strike. Not only that, you can actually put this on your home and protect everything plugged in within 250 linear feet of where it is wired in. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. Well, they still have stocks of the big ones. If they run out of the bigger ones, always check out the micro, because it's all the same protection. It's about a quarter of the size. It's only a few bucks more, but you can fit it into more places, smaller vehicles, smaller spaces. So remember that if they are out of the regular, if they have the micro, that's just as good. And it can protect you against solar events like a Carrington level event or an EMP strike. And then as far as this underground center, it's like, what the hell? Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called on the chief of a UN agency to resign after it claimed ignorance about what Israel says was a nerve center directly beneath its Gaza headquarters. Over the weekend, the Israel Defense Forces, or the IDF, said it had discovered electrical infrastructure and rows of computer services underneath the headquarters of the United Nations. Of course, people are questioning and going, that's kind of weird. I'm going to leave it up to you guys what to think about that. I'm sure they'll come up with some reason why this is happening. It says he mentioned that the UNRWA became aware of reports of a tunnel underneath the headquarters through the media. So they found out through the news, stating that the agency would not have been aware of the activities at the compound since its staff had vacated it on October 12th. So were they just tapping off the power from the center? Were they using the already there infrastructure that the UN had, and they're just going to play dumb? A lot of people are really, really questioning whether this is whether something's not fishy here. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, are we to believe that they set up this data center in the midst of the conflict that kicked off after the 7th? I mean, come on, this this like they were bringing servers in, setting up everything, and we're in the middle of like running and trying to hide in every place we can, but we're going to set up all this equipment and make a data center here. That was got to be there for some time. And so to say it didn't matter because we weren't there since the 12th, it was probably there long before. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't tell you, but that's just the assumption I'm making when I read between the lines on this one. And by the way, talking about Egypt as we did a minute ago, and I know we're sort of moved over to the UN and inside of the Strip here, but the other reason you got to think about why this is so important, folks, and why I know a lot of people sort of don't pay much attention when it comes to things like Egypt or even Iran for that matter. They're one of the largest militaries there. But between Egypt and Turkey, Iran and Israel, those are the biggest strongest, most powerful militaries in the Middle East. So, and Egypt's been funded by the U.S. for a long time and has a ton of our equipment.
Yeah. So if something did go south, we'd be dealing with lots of high tech stuff. By the way, thank you over on D Live. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Over on D Live, we've got Kimbria CJ7, Poco Loco 43. Thank you, Skyhouse. Thank you, Ricky Raquel, Chance Paladin. Thank you for holding it down there. Thank you to the mods. Make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/friends if you haven't already. You've got a great list of great creators there. Again, these are mods that not only keep the chat awesome, but they also have all great senses of what is going on in the world. They all have great channels, great link trees, great Twitter accounts, great books on Amazon. There's a whole list of really, really awesome people here. So make sure to go check them out. From, of course, Wages World is covering all of the solar activity right now. We will have him on tomorrow, hopefully. If everything works out on his end, we'll be fine. But he's going to tell us about how one after another, he's going to show us the data and what is going on with that. It is really insane. For those of you that have been watching the solar activity, you already know. It's just nuts. I mean, it's every other day. Just boom, boom, boom. Another big one, another big one, another big one. So that is going on. Leah, of course, it has her sanctuary. Still, for those of you looking for an update, we'll try to update you tomorrow. I don't know what ended up happening with the sanctuary, so I'll find out. And of course, with the whole that storm that passed through California, really bad. So make sure to go to her link tree, go check out her site. And then Trinity, of course, does awesome work. All of them do. So make sure to go check them out. marfooglenews.com/friends. And let's see here. We over to Ukraine. Russia used Zircon hypersonic missile for the first time, experts say. At least they say they did. They say that Russia attacked Ukraine with a 3 M22 Zircon anti-ship hypersonic cruise missile for the first time since the start of the full-scale invasion. Alexander Ruvin, director of the Kyiv Scientific Research Institute of Forensic Expertise, said on February 12th. In a post on his Telegram channel accompanied by a video showing alleged missile wreckage from a February 7th attack on UKR that took the lives of 5 and injured over 50. It says, this is evidenced by the markings on parts and fragments, the identification of components and parts, and the features of the relevant type of weapon. It's crazy how they can find enough to identify this, but they can't find parts of a plane to identify at least to solidly identify the missing airliner, the whatever plane that went missing with hundreds of people, or that they can't identify big enough parts on the plane that took down 2001. But then, of course, they found passports. As far as this goes, they're able to absolutely say, oh yeah, this is this. Reuven said that the several fragments were engraved with the inscription 3L22 and that the bolts on the steering mechanisms were marked with the number 26, both features of the Zircon. Other markings of the missile debris indicated production of its components 2023, 2024, showing that the missile was built recently. Again, as far as it said, Moscow earlier said the Zircon hypersonic missile entered the arsenal of the Russian army in early 2023, claiming that it has a range of 600 to 1,500 kilometers, can travel at 9 times the speed of sound, and has a warhead weighing about 300 to 400 kilograms. It's very fast. It's hard to stop. One thing that is pointed out here is a lot of folks thought that these were being used earlier. If it's true that they're just now using it, think about this. They are just now using their big bad stuff. If it is true that they did this, they are just now using the best of their stuff. And in the same time that their experts are projecting that very quickly they're about to take the rest of UKR or the rest of the places that they want to take. That their military success is 95% now, that they're going to take everything they want. So the whole timing of all of this is, it may show you that they weren't even going all out, if you believe what they're saying here. And then UKR, Russia has built an 18-mile defensive line in occupied Ukraine using a 2,000 railway carriages. Dex, you want to go over that?
Certainly. So they took two different satellite images. They looked at May 10th, 2023, last year, and they looked at February 6th of this year. And they are now claiming that based on the satellite imagery, that they can see that they have constructed a continual train car line that runs from Olvinka, which is south of the city of Donetsk, to Volnovakha, which you can actually see there on the map. I made sure that both of them were visible. The dot is sort of in the between, and the line of the train cars actually runs through that curve, which I'm assuming the trains run similarly to the roads, which is why, like they do here in the States, a lot of times that's funny how that works. And you can see in the satellite images in the article that you can actually see where they've sort of highlighted this line. It's a very interesting position. I guess I've not heard of this done before, but I'm sure it's a logical and easy maneuver to make by just filling the rails with cars and completing 18 miles of it to sort of create a defensive wall. And that's what they're assuming. I don't believe it means they've just decided to go on strike and they're not running the rails anymore. They've literally built this fortification, as they're calling it, to one of the defense areas. So interesting observation made from the sky. And you can see in the pictures there from the article and the satellite images. But yeah, that's what's happening.
Wide Awaken or Angry says that Putin said that he tried to talk peace with Ukraine and that Zelensky said no. Well, we covered the very public kind of peace deal that they said. Ukraine's angle on that, or their end of it, was that they said that the agreements under the treaty they offered were basically so one-sided that they said, oh, well, they were terms that we would never accept. I think originally at one point, there was a point where they said, if you just put in I don't know if this was the one term, maybe the fine print said a bunch of other stuff, but at one point Russia was saying that, as long as you promise never to join NATO, that was one of its big terms, right? But we don't know what the true terms were. And then Zelensky and NATO and everybody said no. Mind you, they flip-flopped that. Recently, Ukraine offered them a peace deal or something, but Russia said the terms were so silly that they would never accept it, right? Let's see here. Solo, hey, over on Twitter, nice, or X, sorry. Iliad, thank you. I am convinced UKR is Russia, aka crocodile opened its mouth. Danish girl, we've got definition of numbers, navigation, ups and downs in life. Floyd, yes. 40-day ceasefire would give back every Hamas has as long as they return women and children from the detention center that they're held in. Darth V, Boris Johnson flew into UKR and Zelensky didn't sign the full peace agreement. And we just covered Boris Johnson, who obviously is no longer in charge. I think he was teamed up and said that who did Boris Johnson just say was absolutely horrid? Was it Elon? He was talking trash about somebody the other day, saying that they were horrible. What was that? Do you remember, Dex? We covered a story like 3 or 4 days ago. Boris Johnson said,
no, I don't recall.
Gosh, I'm trying to think.
I know he came up in the Tucker stuff just recently. That was Tucker talking about him.
That was it. No. Yeah, Boris Johnson replied, and he was with Zelensky and said that Tucker was a Putin agent or something. Northwest Moto says, are you an AI? I don't know. Could be. 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 I don't know. Sorry about that.
Does not compute.
That's what a computer would say, not an AI. They are much smarter. American Argonaut, Lloyd, Lori D, Russia has saved our asses more than once. Here, well, another thing, people are so not trusting the U.S. People are so distrustful of the U.S. right now that I see a lot of people just straight up saying, I am with Russia on this. People should, if they know their history, they probably shouldn't go all out like I'm Team Russia. People look at, and I've heard a lot of mentions of how they saved Snowden and they've came in where Putin's not a great guy either. Okay. None of these countries are. All of these countries, if you really break this down, and I've talked about this before, how every president is technically somebody who takes people's lives, innocent people's lives. Think about all of the secret ops where somebody may have overheard something. They are innocent. They've never done something wrong. They might not even have a parking ticket, but they might get right in the head because they might have overheard somebody talking. Innocent people are ordered to be taken out all the time. And this is in the underbelly of all of the confidential and secret, top secret stuff. Every president, doesn't matter what country, developing countries, they've ordered for people to be taken out. Not just like the public ones where they're like, our military is going in and taking out this bad guy. We're talking about the secret missions that no one ever hears about. The ones where SEALs go in or some, CIA agents or spies go in, take somebody out, put something in their drink, that kind of stuff. Innocent people perish. So think about that. It may be for national security, but they're still taking the life of an innocent person because of what they know. I mean, so yeah, all of these people are bad. If you were in that job, if they hired you as president tomorrow, on the first day, they probably say, hey, can you sign this? We're about to take out this baker down the street. He actually heard one of our CIA agents saying something. What did he do? Oh, no, he didn't do anything. He just had one of his AirPods out. He might have overheard me say something of top secret knowledge. Okay. No more bread. Jillian's Bakery is closed on 4th Avenue. All right. Moving on, multiple U.S. military whistleblowers reveal how a disc-shaped distraction, UFO, intercepted nuclear missile and disabled it with laser beams in midair over California. Over the last couple of years, and you guys, this is a dividing thing because some people will be like, no, they're absolutely great. In the very beginning of when all of this UFO stuff got coverage, and I'm just telling you my personal opinion, I think everybody should have their own opinion on stuff. I think it's way too convenient that the UFO stuff comes at the exact same time that all of craziness happens. I also think it's really crazy that the same people are involved at all times. If you know about the different operations of the different birds mocking people, all of these different things that go on, then you're definitely more suspicious of the people that are constantly in the news. There's a few names that are constantly in this UFO stuff. And in the very beginning, I thought, man, these guys are being real jerks. The people that say, oh, this guy's a shill or this or that. Because first of all, I think that everybody accuses everybody of being one. But in the beginning, I heard a couple creators talking badly about some of these UFO guys. And I was like, sounds like they're just jealous or something. But the more and more I do look at it, there's a couple of people in there that it's like they're constantly coming up with the most craziest stuff. And I'm like, they're directly working with the government at this point. And it makes you wonder, especially when all of a sudden, and this isn't the same person, but another whistleblower on the same day that the trial of JB's son was going on, they're like, oh, we have a huge release. And it was information that was already put out. It was just the guy directly saying it to a bunch of congressional people that looked professional in suits. And they were like, oh my God, so you're saying we have a craft? Blah, blah, blah. And people loved it because they knew it was perfect for 60-second clips to put all over TikTok, to spread it around a Congress going, wait, so you're saying we have UFOs here in the United States and we weren't told about it? Look at this graph behind me. Look at this graph. Here, I'm going to flip this page and I'm going to show you something shocking and I'm going to do my circus for you to watch and share on TikTok. This is absolutely unacceptable. Did you know about this? No. Answer my damn question. Did you know about it? No, I don't care about your excuses. Did you know about it? Flip the page. UFO. You are a UFO. Did you know you were a UFO? Some of you know what I'm talking about, but I digress. Basically, this UFO stuff has time and time again gone along with what people's theories are. And now they're only further confirming like what we've thought was real for a long time. And I do believe in stuff flying above our heads. I have asked people that were former DOD, and I said, hey, are UFOs real? I even asked one, this is somebody who does know. And I said, what do you think? And they could only do yes or no questions. I said, Paul Hellyer, Canadian defense minister, said that UFOs are as real as the planes above us. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? And they said yes. That cemented for me that like UFOs are as real as the planes above us and as many as the planes above us. And I said, are they keeping secrets? He said, yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of things where it was just point blank. But as far as the stuff that's being publicized right now, I think it's a big distraction from what is being built right now, the framework that is being done. And I think that there's a couple key players that are really, really pushing it and helping this take the forefront. Of course, there's a lot of you that want real disclosure. Do you think we are actually getting real disclosure? And if we do, what happens to society? What happens when we're already at a state where most religions are taking the backseat to atheism and evolution and all of this? What happens when our society does lose kind of a basic framework of what is good, what is bad, and then further puts our entire existence into question? What do you think would happen? Some think it would be a good thing, that it would reset everything and there would be some sort of revolution of man and everything would be different and maybe it would bring on positive things. But most people think it would be very, very bad. Dex, go ahead.
Well, the claim that's being made here is not unlike other claims we've heard before. We've heard of, back in the days, the military officers witnessing orbs around a nuclear silo and turning it off. The claim here is kind of interesting in the sense that they say it was a warhead that was in test flight and it had detached, which was then to move into its next phase, and that these saucer-like crafts shot lasers at it and disabled it. Now, the officials, which is a retired U.S. Air Force officer, Lieutenant Bob Jacobs and Major Florence Mansman, so two potential, individuals from the military, say, and they were former officials, who were part of the team that was responsible for capturing the video of the missile test. And they did that with telescopic photography as well as telescopic videography. And 2 days later, after they had screened the video and looked at it and had it, two plainclothes CIA agents confiscated the footage and swore them to secrecy. That's the story. It sounds like something you would see in a movie. But we're also talking about the 60s, 1964. That's how old this is. But the crazy part, it's even crazier, is now we get Luis Elizondo coming out saying that he acknowledges that video actually exists and says he's seen it himself when he was the former director of the Pentagon's UA, or what is now, I guess, the UAP, but the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program study. So, to whatever extent that adds any level of credibility or not, I don't know. But I certainly agree that a lot of this is just it keeps coming in the guise of, or what feels like very distractionist information, as opposed to let's, get it on if there's really something happening here.
Well, then they say 2 days later, after they screened the video, they claim that two plainclothes CIA agents confiscated the footage and swore them to secrecy, which apparently they didn't keep for very long because they're telling us that they were sworn to secrecy. I guess now they feel protected enough to do it. Like I said, somebody could sign a form and get them taken out in a second if they knew really, really crazy information. It makes you wonder, too, about some of the people that are, if they're going against the grain, then they will end up perished somewhere in a ditch. Anik says, sometimes I wonder why you're not talking about the obvious. Anik, please let me know what the obvious is, because we cover, I don't rarely avoid what the obvious is. Right now, the obvious is a whole plethora of things. And again, make sure to check both channels to make sure that we're not talking about it. And then, yeah, speaking of the obvious, everybody is talking about this. This is JB. This is an actual post by our president right as the super event happened yesterday, the bowl, as the football event happened. He posts this, just like we drew it up. And even if you click on the official one, and I'll go to, let me show you the official here. Let me get the, this is nuts. Let's go to his official Twitter here. Let's see. Yeah, so the official photo, which you can add in an alternate description here, you click on it, it says Dark Brandon. And the responses to this are just absolutely nuts. It says, let me click on it so you get the responses here. The first ones, Roz Alert. At first, I thought this was a parody account, but what the hell is this? It says, I thought this was a parody account, but nope, it's the president. Again, we have Dom Luker says, N-word, this is scary AF, and you know it. You have, of course, Libs of TikTok says, this is creepy AF. Ian Miles Chong, creepy. And let's see here, we've got... Okay, in turn, Sheshabita Hoshi Nakamoto says 2.1 million followers, but that's a huge account. Okay, in turn, you are promoted. Down below, you have Internet Hall of Fame chiming in and saying, Joe, what the you have Nick Merckx even chiming in saying clown. I believe that's the same Nick Merckx that got removed from Call of Duty. I think, yeah, for posting his opinion. And Wokeness says this was posted at 10:50 p.m., about 5 hours after Joe is tucked into bed by the nurses, which in turn posted this. So, and Dr. Oma Suleiman, another almost 1 million followers, says, you are literally a devil, Joe. So this was posted after the whole bowl was in commencement. And of course, the same event where what everybody was talking about was Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, which of course they follow Travis. I thought it was kind of funny. We were laughing yesterday watching the Super as one of the really big players on the Kansas Chiefs was off to the side. After about 100 news reporters follow, you see there's not a single place around Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. You cannot see the ground. There's just cameras everywhere. Everybody's trying to get that shot of Travis Kelce. And then there was one of the other players. They show him, and he is not 10 feet away. You see nothing but grass. There's not a single photographer, and it's just him hugging his mom. And it was like that guy basically got overshadowed completely by what was going on over here. They didn't even follow Mahomes, the quarterback. They followed freaking Travis and what's her face. I just did a video over on news. If you haven't seen that, go over and check it out. Again, just some of the stuff that's going on as far as Taylor and Travis Kelce. A lot of people said, why do you even care about this? Why do you cover it? Because it is what 90% of people are paying attention to right now. While all of this craziness is going on, look at what our kids are paying attention to. Look at what our youth is infatuated with. Who are these people? What message are they putting out there? If you see the pictures of Taylor with her friends, and this is the main row of 4 people there, 3 of them are dressed in all black. One of them has an upside down cross doing the devil hand signs with flaming red hair. And it's like, what do you think that says to people? Along with the longtime reputation Taylor Swift, who forever, they put it, the PR people made a huge deal out of it for 10 years, for a decade, that she is this, hometown girl Christian. And now she's completely changing that attitude. Her outfits from big performances in front of millions of people, black dress with one arm and one leg exposed, which has symbolism, with red serpents going up of her dress, her dressing up as a devil at the Grammy shows, at all of these, or at the music events. It's like, there is intention behind that. They don't just dress up as a devil to be cute. They do this because there is intention behind it. That's my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. As far as JB, our president, doing this, obviously both sides thought that this was weird. They thought that the account was hacked. They thought it was a parody account, but yet it was not. This was the real JB posting this? Why? Now, mind you, there's a side theory, and this is actually crazy. I didn't know about this at the time of the video, but somebody says that a Nigerian politician,
I've got the link
banker,
for you. It's in screener if you want it.
We've linked it over on our website. One of the biggest CEOs of Nigerian banks, or the person at the top, went down in a crash around the same time as they post this. Now, if you've seen The Boys, Homelander in that show with his laser eyes takes out this plane in that show. So people are finding reference to that, thinking, oh, they thought everybody was talking about the bull there, but they believe they were talking about that they did this because of that. Why did he post this? Just like we drew it up. What does that mean? Of course, now there's already a million articles explaining what they say it's going to mean. I don't get it. I don't get it. Do you get it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Tell me in the comments down below. Dex, I mean, it's just weird. It's absolutely the weirdest thing I've seen.
It certainly is. I mean, I just don't understand it because it's so trolly. And that's what I called it when I posted about it. I said, it just seems like it's a trolly thing to do. And that's not, I'm not going to say it's not something a president can do. We've certainly seen presidents, especially the previous administration, poke and troll, if you want to call it that, the media or other things. But it's not something that we normally see this president doing at this level. And something's up. And it's so interesting too, because it's on the heels of that horrific press conference that he had the other day, right when Putin's speech came out, where the media just completely attacked him for his age and his competency. And it's interesting because they're framing it as age more so than anything else. But and everyone is sort of, and it's not just that, even New York Times went on the defensive, or not defensive, went on the offensive against him. So, and now they're making posts like this. It almost seems like they're just setting us up for him to bow out somehow or be removed. That's just my opinion. That's just a feeling I'm getting from a lot of the shift that's happened in the last couple weeks.
I mean, do you see the comparison? And by the way, Homelander is an evil, evil, evil dude. In the show, he's basically hates the people. If you haven't seen The Boys, it might not be for everybody, but it's basically as if superheroes were in our real world with politics and all of that, the divided politics, left versus right. So say you see the Flash running down the street. In all the movies, they show him crossing the whole planet. They never really ask the question, like, what if the Flash hit somebody when he was running 1,000,000 miles per hour? This show, within the first 5 minutes, somebody is obliterated by the Flash in the show. They have an equivalent to Superman, equivalent to Flash, equivalent to all these. And it's not like a corny, tacky thing. It's more of like they actually did a good job making it disturbing, right? But their version of the Flash runs through somebody and obliterates them, and the guy's still holding his girlfriend's arms. It's like that's the kind of show it starts off in the first 5 minutes. I won't ruin the rest of the show, but once you see what Homelander's like, this comparison is absolutely very untactful for everybody that said, oh, well, I like Joe because he's more professional and my kids can look up to him. This was a weird comparison. And it's very obvious it's not like a Superman comparison. It's more of a Homelander comparison, especially with the context of it. It's weird. It's definitely off. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if there is something obvious that we missed today, let me know, Anik or whoever. If there is something, we genuinely may have missed it. So let me know. Dex, go ahead.
Speaking of the current president and his cognitive abilities, I'm just reading a headline that I guess Elon was responding to, saying that the upcoming physical exam of our current sitting president will not, according to the White House, include a cognitive test. I don't know why they're having to say that, but they're putting that out.
Well, and Dex and I were talking before the show. It's like, are they setting him up to can him or something? Kamala just went on the record with Washington. Is it the Washington Journal?
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. and said she's ready to take over. Of course, I'm sure the clip is her cackling and saying, "Oh, sure, I would take over." I don't know what context. I haven't seen the video, but the quote is basically saying she's ready to take over if she needs to be. That has been a theory for 3 years, that she would somehow be the one who takes his place. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Viv B, thank you. Says, have you seen an EV catch fire? I didn't see the rest of that. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen videos, and I know that we covered that story about how they have to leave them sitting there for a certain amount of time, like 3 months. I don't know if that's true, but I remember them talking about that. Isn't T-Man the same age as Joe? Yeah. And again, I think that T-Man in the next 4 years, he could become prez. And then in that 4 years, he could go downhill. But it's about health. What's his name? The guy, Jack LaLanne. Isn't Jack LaLanne was like 99 doing like pull-ups. It's about health. I mean, how many of us, didn't treat our lives up until we're 20 or 30 with any respect, like our bodies, right? I jam my face full of junk. I smoked and I drank. I'm sure that's going to catch up with me when I'm older. Some people, if you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do things your entire life, you might be a little bit better off than some that did. But who knows? Maybe
but that's why they're framing it as age, Adam. That's my opinion. They're framing it as age and not cognition. So they can turn around and say, well, if he's gone, then we can look at the runner, T-Man, and say he's in that same age bracket. He should be gone too. This is an age issue, not a cognitive ability issue. That's my opinion. That's what how I'm reading between the tea leaves, so to speak.
I don't know. So it's not going to be it. Then they're going to ban anybody over a certain age for doing this kind of stuff. I mean, one of my great aunts died at 103. She was on her own until she died. She did everything. She walked up to 5 miles every single day at 102. She finally got to the point where she was not moving around, and she still got by with her electric chair at 102. She was walking 5 miles until she was 102. So I don't think it's so much age, it's shape. And if they can test you for that, if they can figure that out. But at any point, anybody in their 60s, 70s, anybody in their 40s could perish tomorrow. In fact, since 2019, pretty sure that you could be 19 years old with a whole life ahead of you and perish like that. But I guess that's that. So thank you. Craig Alicious says, hands down, best show on YouTube. Thank you, Adam and Dex. Hey, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you over on DLive. I appreciate everybody that just made it. Skyhouse, Kimbria, Scooby-Doo Ray. Thank you for making it to every show. Thank you. Poco Loco. And of course, J-Girl, that's me. Thank you. Craig Alicious, thank you so much for supporting. I appreciate you. And yeah, people lose their minds at different times. Sean, see, that's another thing we talked about in previous videos is that's the one thing they cannot, they might be able to keep our bodies going for 500 years. They say theoretically they could keep our minds or our bodies going, but they won't be able to get our brains going. That's where Elon Musk comes in, who just claimed in the future, you'll be able to download your brain and either put that brain into somebody else's brain or download it like a video game and put it into a robot. If any of this is true, we are going into a life-changing evolution as we speak. And if people don't think that our planet is about to be a whole lot different, whether it's war or evolution, then they're wrong. Dex, thank you for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Links and sources all on the web. Make sure to go check out marfooglenews.com/friends. For Jams, Craig Alicious, top supporter tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're going to be heading over to Jams here in a few seconds. If you're in chat, you can just be ported right over. Neil Nelson, thank you for the super thanks over on TV. Thank you. Lola Cafe, Bill Fortenberry, thank you. Appreciate you. And thank you, JT, Mork, Mindy, Old Combat Vet, and all of the rest. I appreciate you guys. Love you. Stephen McMahon, be safe, be prepared, and Marf out.
I'm ready.
sea. I carol in the midst of Mississippi. I see the raven nest and the homestead and the Lorry D. Beans and Frank and the J Bass, the Briar Batch and the Mr. Miles, the Ain't About and Mr. Blank. I say, Alicia at the MD, Kiev on Newton. Everybody go now, every shooting. On echo, perfection, a jam on one. Hey, one back with a carol. Angelo, Porfelli, and the narrow. Do it now. Wisdom 3, triple 3, and order. Virgilio, leaves, does so rice. Everybody, oh, so